Hello and welcome back to The Alt. Thank you for joining me again today. I am your host, Shapirian. Pumped to be back with you with this kind of a Week 11 primer here. Week 11's already got started with the Thursday night game in our rearview mirror. It was a fun game, even if it wasn't the closest game in the world. The Eagles, again, asserting their dominance over the rest of the NFC kind of right now. The NFC really looks like a Lions and Eagles race, but we're going to talk more about the Week 11 games in this particular episode. Don't watch Week 11 without listening to this episode of The Alt. I'm going to tell you everything you need to be looking out for, because this week, easily more than any other week in this season so far, has crazy implications that are going to matter come January, regardless of what happens this week. There's implications everywhere. We're going to talk all about it. I'll give you my biggest matchup of the week with some honorable mentions. That's biggest matchup in terms of possible future outcomes, by the way. I'm going to give you my risky pick where I tell you the underdog that I think will win outright. And then as always, I'll give you my one and done pick where I'm like, this team, more than any other team, I feel safest about winning their game. No surprises to be had with that one, by the way. But stay around for that. Let's start by dissecting this loaded slate, and it is a loaded slate on Sunday to talk about what I think is the biggest game of the week. Normally, I get right into it. This week, I'm going to get into some honorable mentions because there's really three huge candidates, sort of four, but the fourth one's not as fun or exciting. So really three big candidates for the biggest matchup of the week. Again, that's the biggest in terms of like, okay, depending on who wins, what does the future hold? Not necessarily the biggest as in, the most marquee, right? Which I also feel like will be a bit of a debate between probably two games this week. Let's get to the honorable mentions. A big one, regardless of how you spin it, is going to be taking place on Sunday night in SoFi Stadium as the Bengals travel to take on the Los Angeles Chargers to try to salvage this piss-poor season that they've been having. Oh my God, it has sucked to be a Bengals fan this season. Fun offense. I hate the defense. I'm sick of all those bums except Trey Hendrickson. I really am. Listen, I saw a stat for this game, right? And people, run the probabilities and things like that. I trust that stuff. I'm big into math and numbers and things like that myself. I always have been. So I'm like, I fully understand why this is the case. If you look at this matchup right now, okay, between the 6-3 Chargers and the 4-6 Cincinnati Bengals, the two probably won't get in each other's ways at all for the rest of the season because the Chargers are primed for a wild card spot. The Bengals, if they're even around in January, which it doesn't look like they will also be there in a wild card spot. So unless these two were to go on a crazy run and run into each other in the AFC Championship, this is the last these two teams are going to see of each other. But they could impact the way the other's season goes. On the line in this game, in terms of playoff probability, your chances of making it are about 40% for either team. It's crazy. If the Bengals win, their playoff chances in terms of, the likelihood of them making it sit just beneath 50%. Not bad considering that regardless of what happens in this game, you are under 500 halfway through November going into your bye. If you can win a game to get to a 50% playoff chance, that's kind of crazy. Meanwhile, the Chargers already sit comfortably over that mark at 6-3, and the way the AFC West has shaken out for them has been beautiful. They competed with the Chiefs in their first game earlier this season, and they've looked very much like a team that is well coached by their coach Jim Harbaugh, who I'm obviously a huge fan of, and I love seeing him and Jesse Mentor do well. It's been phenomenal to watch. So while I'll be pulling against the Chargers on Sunday night, of course, I have them winning this one. I think they'll pull it out. I think the Bengals just won't find a way to win any close games this season against good teams because they haven't yet. Why would I believe that they can do it? And, people like to say, first real test for this, Chargers defense, man. They've held, I think they're averaging 18 points a game on defense, which is crazy. You're going to win so many games doing that. And you look at the three losses, one of them in particular to the Cardinals on Monday night, it was like, man, they really should have won that one too. They should really be 7-2 going into this game. But alas, here we are. I think that defense is legit, and I don't think it's just a product of who they've played. I saw someone make the argument that, Joe Burrow has done this against very good defenses. Obviously, Philly contained them. Week 1 against the Patriots, they contained them. I'm telling you, the Chargers defense is legit. I don't think the Bengals will put up more than 20 points in this game. I really don't, and I think they have to if they want to win because their defense is going to give up 28 to any sort of competent offense at a minimum for the rest of the season. So that's kind of just the reality for this Bengals team. You come and go as the offense comes and goes. And even then, you've lost games where your offense has showed up. I don't trust the Bengals to win this game. So, I'm always wearing Bengals stuff for the most part. That has nothing to do, and I've said this when I started the show, you're not going to get any bias in terms of my picks, my predictions, my analysis. Chargers are going to win this game. I'm very confident in saying that. And it is going to be, should be anyways, coffin nails for the Bengals playoff hopes going forward this season. They would literally have to win every single matchup and hope that the Broncos lose some along the way to make the playoffs still. Chargers go up to like a 93% playoff chance if they win this game, going to 7-3. I'm excited to see what happens with the Chargers this season. They have been fun to watch. Another honorable mention for biggest matchup of the week doesn't quite hit the mark. God, Ravens-Steelers is going to be a lot of fun. Listen, a Steelers win in this game would make a Ravens AFC North victory so incredibly hard to achieve, regardless of the Steelers' outstanding schedule. Their bye is already in their rear view. The Ravens is not, of course, so they've played an extra game right now. Regardless, I think if the Steelers can find a way to win this game, which they have done a lot of the time in the Lamar Jackson era, Lamar has had so much trouble against these great Steelers defenses. And again, this is a defense that it's between them and KC. Depending on the day, I'll tell you which one I think is the best in the NFL. So for the sake of this argument, sake of this conversation, I'll say this is a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that's the best in the NFL. Lamar tends to trip up against them, but this offense seems different. I've said it over and over and over again on this show. Lamar, the passer, has been killing teams this season, absolutely shredding them, and they're coming off a mini-bye, which is huge. I didn't mention that for the Bengals' sake, because I don't think a mini-bye is going to save that putrid defense. For the Ravens, hey, Lamar's been a little bit banged up, things like that. He's missed some Wednesday practices, which isn't a huge deal, but, regardless. Mini-bye could be huge going into this. And a Ravens win, I hate to say it. Steelers fans, you've been so nice to me, so good to me, and I hope that you think I've been treating you well as well, because I really like what I've seen from your team this season. I'm coming off a really nice win against the Commanders. Debatably should have lost it. I think if the Commanders get the ball back down 1, they probably do find a way to do it, but Johnny Newton, made the decision to jump on a 4th down call that, I can't believe he jumped on that snap. Whatever. It's a great team doing what great teams do. A well-coached team doing what well-coached teams do, with the Steelers finding a way to win that one. You look back at their other wins, and I think they're very much legitimate, but there are some losses, or not some losses, but some performances, I should say. And I'm like, how much of that is a product of the team, right? You beat the Giants by 8 with Russell Wilson. Okay. Past that, the Jets game with Russell Wilson made me realize he's legit. He still can be an excellent contributor to a good offense. And then last week, you did what you had to do. That's the most points you've had to put up in a win all season, and you did get the job done. If you lose to the Ravens, all of a sudden the conversation is going to be, well, they're not in first place anymore, right? I think the Ravens would technically have it by tiebreaker, even though they've played an extra game or something like that. I think that's how it would work. I think they'd be a half game in first place with tiebreaker. And so then it's like, well, they're a wild card team again, and then it comes a conversation. Can they beat the Chiefs? Can they beat the Ravens? Can they beat the Bills? Steelers need this one bad. And Steelers fans, skip forward about 30 seconds, because I'm telling you, the Ravens are going to find a way to win this game. It is on the road in Pittsburgh, and I don't care who wins this game. It doesn't affect me. I hate you both. But in terms of watching this game from a fan perspective, it's going to be a really exciting one to watch. From a pure analysis perspective, it's huge. Its outcome is going to be massive to the AFC playoff picture. Imagine this Ravens team as a wild card team, not getting a single home game in the playoffs. There's a world where they would have to go to Kansas City round 1 if the Chiefs don't get the 1 seed or something crazy like that. That is a possibility, albeit unlikely. Imagine that. That could be really crazy. However, I think the Ravens get the job done this weekend, move into first place, and I don't think they look back on first place for the rest of the season. I did have them winning the AFC North. I did have them winning the Super Bowl. I still think they are full speed ahead towards that goal. That said, I don't think this is the biggest matchup of the weekend, because let's not overthink it. Sometimes I go with the Galaxy Brain answer, and sometimes it is just the marquee matchup. This weekend, it's just the marquee matchup. Bills-Chiefs easily is the most important game of this weekend. Listen, I want to have just a quick, brief discussion about the importance of the 1 seed in the current NFL playoff slate. I actually did some talking with someone who's not a huge football fan, but is very smart, very rational, very much easily able to manipulate numbers, kind of how I am as well. And, a few years back, obviously, the NFL expanded the playoffs from 6 teams per conference with 2 1 seeds to 7 teams per conference with 1 bye. That's what I meant to say. It was 2 byes to 1 bye. And I've wondered, they'll probably expand it again, make it about half the league. I think that's what they want to do with the way things have trended. It's like more playoff teams because people like it, and then more regular season games because it's more money. We're going to get there too. We're going to get to 18 games at some point, which is crazy. But, yeah. I want to just say this. In its current capacity, the 1 seed in the playoffs is way, way, way too strong of an advantage. I look at the Chiefs, who have had it really every year but one in this run that they've been on. And bottom line is, they've been the best team in the NFL during that time. I'm not debating that. But the beauty of the wild card, right, is to say, regardless of who's in your division, if you've got 2 or 3 other good, look at the AFC North last season, right? 4th place was 9-8. 3 teams made the playoffs because of this rule. It's great. There's going to be a year one year, definitely not this year, but there's going to be a year one year where all 4 teams in a division make the playoffs. I thought maybe the NFC North this season with the way it was going, but the Bears have fallen off, and I don't see them recovering to make the playoffs at this point, even though I've not said that on the show. Spoiler, I guess. It's going to happen one of these years where a whole division is so good that they all make the playoffs, right? That's how it should be. So then there only being 1 team that gets a first-round bye, the 1 seed in each conference. Yes, it's worth playing for. Yes, it's a great prize. Yes, it's a great advantage, meaning every regular season game for those teams is worth it. How much of that is determined by a weak conference? The Chiefs, for much of this run that they've been on, where they've had the 1 seed every year, and granted this year is different, right? And last year they didn't get it. Of course, the Ravens did, despite their tough division. But you're looking at it like look at 2022, for example, right? The Bills and the Bengals each played 1 less game, or the 2 and the 3 seeds, respectively, and things like that. While the Chiefs, 6 of their games were against the Chargers, who got to the playoffs and floundered, the Raiders, who stunk, the Broncos, who stunk, and that's their scenario most years, right? And I just don't understand why we're so comfortable being like, yeah, 1 team gets to skip an entire round. Every other freaking team doesn't. And it could come down to the fact of if 2 teams have the same record, the very first tiebreaker, if they've not played each other, right, if head-to-head comes first. After that, assuming they haven't played each other, the first tiebreaker is your divisional record. Essentially, you get rewarded for having an easier division in that case, with skipping a whole playoff round to get healthier, to be guaranteed to be 1 game away from the conference championship, 2 from the Super Bowl. I hate the current status of the 1 seed in the NFL playoffs. All of which to say, it's probably on the line this weekend in the AFC with the Bills playing the Chiefs, Kansas City going into Buffalo to try to keep their perfect season alive. This is a crazy one. We've got the Chiefs as underdogs again, I believe just the 2nd time all year that is the case. Do I pick them in my risky pick of the week where I pick an underdog to win outright? I don't know. You'll have to stay tuned to find out. But with that said, a win here for Kansas City effectively should lock up that 1 seed, because depending on the outcome of Steelers-Ravens, you're looking at a scenario here where every team has at least 3 losses that they're competing against in that division or conference for the 1 seed. They'd be sitting at a perfect 10-0. They're not going to get to 3 losses this regular season if they manage to win this weekend for sure, just about, right? That said, Bills pull it off. Ooh, okay. Can the Bills continue to make a run? Look, they still have some divisional games coming up. There's a lot of schedule watching to be done with the Bills. Let's just put it that way. And they've done a good job of maintaining their focus in these games against bigger opponents. They have their bye week coming up right after this, and then they face the 49ers, who should be the healthiest they've been all season, the healthiest they will be all season, given, of course, that Brandon Ayuk is out and things of that nature. And then the rest of their path, you'd have to go through the Lions. Tough. A couple more divisional games, though. It could happen. It absolutely could happen. They haven't played the Patriots yet. If the Bills win this weekend, they absolutely could still get the 1 seed. But it's probably not going to happen. Regardless, though, Chiefs win. 1 seed is all but wrapped up, and it's not December. How often does that happen? And I've said since week 2, go back on the show and watch. Since week 2, I have said, right, they beat the Bengals by 1, 4th and 26 conversion on the DPI. Massive game in the grand scheme of things. I said after that game, live on this show, Chiefs are going to be 9-0 going into this game against the Bills. Wasn't predicting that they would lose to the Bills. And guess what? I'm still not predicting that they're going to lose to the Bills. I think they go into Buffalo, a place that in the regular season, Buffalo's been able to get the job done against the Chiefs a lot of the time, right? When they go head-to-head in the regular season, the Bills have done okay. I think they might actually have like a 500 record, Allen versus Mahomes, something like that. It's in the playoffs that they can't beat him, okay? It's in the playoffs. Regular season, they've got a great chance, and it's at home, but I think the Chiefs get it done. I think they are so hyper-focused right now, and I think teams are starting to change the way they play in a negative way when they play them. I think they're like, okay, well, every single mistake is magnified and things of that nature. I think the Chiefs are in every other team's head right now. I think they win this weekend in what is easily the biggest matchup of the weekend in terms of the overall outcome of the season. It's also going to be massive in terms of just watching two of the best in the game, Mahomes and Allen, at their best, duking it out, really potentially for supremacy in the AFC this season. Before we move on to the risky pick and the one and done, I do want to mention that there's a big one this weekend that I'm not going to get to in this episode because it didn't quite fit the mold. I think the other three I mentioned were a little bit bigger. Falcons at Broncos is huge. If the Falcons lose, then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know what to make of them in an NFC where like they're probably almost certainly going to get the NFC South divisional crown still, just because they can lose and probably still be 2 games ahead with the way it's just working out. The Buccaneers, of course, on bye this week, but they're sitting at 4-6. So even if the Falcons fall to 6-5, it doesn't really matter. However, you talk about the other circumstances. If the Falcons win this game, the Broncos fall to 5-6 and still have a playoff spot at 5-6. Say that the Colts beat the Jets and that the Bengals beat the Chargers. We're talking a scenario where there's 3 5-6 teams vying for that final wild card spot. Traditional football fans, purists, are going to be like, ugh, sub 500, talking playoffs and a wild card scenario, not even divisional. Yeah, and granted, whoever gets that spot is not going to be sub 500 when the end of the season rolls around. It's just a matter of how it's gone so far. And with a Bengals-Broncos game coming up this season, and the Colts, committing to Anthony Richardson and still having a ton of winnable games coming up on their schedule with the way it works out. They have the Patriots. They have the Broncos too, people. Absolutely could do it. Jags again, Titans again, Giants. Things lighten up for the Colts. Don't count them out yet, with some other teams kind of sneaking around in there, like the Dolphins. If the Falcons win, an NFC team beating an AFC team, boy, the AFC playoff picture gets weird. That's all I have to say about it. It's kind of an honorable mention, right, if you want to say that. So, Falcons, Broncos, don't sleep on the importance of that one either. Now, with that said, let's move into my 2 picks I do every week. An underdog pick that I think is going to win outright, and the safest pick, where I can't pick the same team twice throughout the season, but I'm going to pick one this week. Say I'm more confident in you winning your game than anyone else. Let's do it. Let's start with the risky pick. I just talked about him for a second, and I think this team is primed to make a legitimate playoff push. I had them winning their division. They're not going to do that, I don't think. I think they've dropped just too many, and their quarterback has not developed as much this season as I was hoping he would. I thought this season he would look a little different than he has, but it's okay regardless. My risky pick of the week is that the Colts are underdogs against the Jets, and I don't think they're going to lose to the Jets. It's at home, otherwise they would be favored, I think, technically, or it'd be like a push, like most teams, even odds, something like that. I think the team is going to be happy with the direction of Anthony Richardson returning, and of course the commitment that he is going to be the quarterback for the rest of the season, barring injury, which is absolutely the right call on my decision with what we've seen from Flacco, albeit Joe Flacco had to play 2 very, very, very good teams in his 2 starts that he got awarded, so I don't know. But to me, I'm so out on the Jets. Just like I've been out on the Saints all season, I'm so out on the Jets making any sort of legitimate run here. And I think they're going to continue to drop games down the stretch. I just don't trust a 3-7 team that has felt lifeless for much of the season. Granted, they did get a really cool win a few weeks ago. Who cares? To beat a team that, yes, they're sitting there also at 4-6. But a win really pushes them into playoff talks that I don't think we're having. They're the next team up behind the Broncos for that 7th seed in the AFC. They know it. Anthony Richardson knows it. Shane Steichen knows it. That defense knows it. I trust the Colts to win this game, even though they are underdogs. And then for my final pick, the one and done pick of the week. I think I did miss a Friday episode last week. We're changing things up here, so before I get into that, I guess I'll let you know what my plans are for the show. I'm going to take the show off Spotify, but just because the viewership and the listeners aren't really there to make it worth the overall effort and the timing and planning that it takes to get that up on Spotify at the same time as on YouTube. It's not a ton of extra effort, but it is a little bit of effort. And also, I'm shifting it more from week or daily show type of categories and stuff like that into more of a video-centric experience that is going to have more sporadic episodes throughout the week. My current plan is a Monday episode, Tuesday episode, a Friday episode, and a Saturday episode. So we're dropping from Monday to Friday, 5 days to 4 days with some gaps in there so that I can give you better experiences to cover the most important stuff of the week. So there's my little announcement on that. And so starting next week, you'll see that be the case. Of course, this one being my first Saturday video. I hope you guys love it. Let's talk about the one and done pick of the week here. I'll try to go back, if not this week, then next, and update. I did make my risky pick and my one and done picks for each of the weeks that I didn't do episodes on Fridays. Still have them, so we're still good. And we're doing okay. We're just like 500 on the season for each at this point. My one and done this week, it's not even a discussion. The Lions are 13.5-point favorites against the Jags, and I'm not even sure that that's enough to talk about how much I have faith that the Lions are going to win this game outright. It's like I think we all have faith that the Lions are going to win this game outright. They're at home. They kill it at home. It does suck that they're going to be minus Sam Laporta for this game. That is massive. I get it. The Jags are lifeless. 2-8. Backs are against the wall. To a degree, I think that as an org, they might already be starting to look towards next season, particularly what that's going to look like roster-wise, coaching-wise, front office-wise. Who knows? And a team like that going up against an 8-1 contender in the NFC, whose sights are set on that overpowered, I guess you would say, 1 seed, trust the Lions to get this one done. And there's not a better game on the schedule, in my opinion, to use the Lions, which I somehow have not used, I don't think. And this one, unless I did and I just forgot, maybe I broke my own game here on accident. I'm not supposed to duplicate teams. No, I have not used the Lions. Can confirm. So, yeah, okay, great. We're using the Lions this week to beat the Jaguars. That's my one and done pick. I feel good about it. I'm sure you do at home as well. Sorry, Jags fans. I thought you'd be more fun than you've been. Just not been a great season for you. With that said, that wraps up this episode of The Alt. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, you made this far in the episode, check and see if you're subscribed. If you're not, please consider doing so. I greatly appreciate it. We're making a push to 200. It's been great. Already we've seen a decent amount of jump just from 100 that we hit about a week ago. I'm really appreciative of it, and hitting that button means a lot more to me than you know. It takes just a second. With that said, enjoy this week of football. It's massive. It's huge. If your team is playing, that game is probably important. That's how big of a week it is, all right? That is it for me on this one. I will see you back here on Monday. We're going to drop the whole bright and early thing because we're not going to do the Spotify thing. It's more so just what time do you guys want the videos? I'm going to go with the data, continue to experiment, change things up. So I appreciate your patience in that. With that said, I will see you back here to talk about Sunday's games on Monday. Enjoy the football.